tell me when that is and where you're going.
So June 20th through the 24th, we're going to Nashville, Huntsville, Asheville, Louisville, and Atlanta. Go to GrahamElwood.com for tickets.
All right. Everybody get your tickets. Now, we're going to be talking about this guy. Now, this guy's the former CEO, or he is the CEO. He's the outgoing Starbucks chairman for Starbucks, Howard Schultz. And he's going to... he's saying going to run for president, and he's going to do it as a Democrat. And what this guy is going to, well, he said some crazy stuff. Here it is. Here's what he's concerned about Democrats. Want to know what he's concerned about?
So many voices within the Democratic Party are going so far to the left, and I ask myself, how are we going to pay for all these things?
So that's what he asked himself. How is he going to pay for all these things? So let me just give you the rundown. Things we cannot afford: healthcare, infrastructure, public transport, education, renewable energy, clean environment, feeding the poor, and public elections. Can't afford it. They can afford it in every other country that has the wealth that we have, or less wealth than we have. They can all afford it. But a guy who was a CEO of Starbucks, who, by the way, got people to pay $5 for a 50-cent cup of coffee on the regular, somehow he can convince people to have breakfast as a coffee drink. I mean, have dessert for breakfast as a coffee drink, but somehow we can't have health care. Here's the things we can't afford. The things we can't afford: Iraq and Afghanistan wars, $4.6 trillion. Wall Street bailout, $12.8 trillion. Big oil subsidies, and an F-35 program, which is $1.5 trillion that nobody wants. That's from American reformers. You want to see what we can afford? Here's what we can afford. 600, that, by the way, that's more now. So they just all got together, decided that wasn't enough money we were spending, more than the next 8 countries combined. That wasn't enough. We're now spending more. We're now spending close to $700 billion a year on war. That's 40% more than we were spending at the height of the Iraq war. We're now spending 40% more. Nobody ever said, how are we going to afford that? I'm worried about my friends on the left and the right. How are we going to pay for all that war? No one ever asked that question. They just spend an extra $80 billion per year they gave to Trump, who's supposed to be a maniac that we're not supposed to let near the nuke button, except we're going to give him $80 billion more for bombs, and then we're going to attack him from the right when he doesn't bomb enough. So that's called the corporate capture of our government. Military-industrial complex has a stranglehold on our government, and you can't have health care, so they can have that. You can't have free college, so they can have that. Do you see what China spends? China spends barely a quarter what we're spending. Russia, look at Russia. It's like a joke. Russia doesn't even spend total what we're giving Trump extra. We just gave Trump extra $80 billion a year. They're spending $69.2 billion. By the way, this graph comes from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute. After that is Saudi Arabia. They pay $63 billion. And then after that is India. They pay $55 billion. That's what we're spending. Why can't we? How are we going to afford this? How are we going to afford stuff? So that was the CEO of Starbucks. Hey, I'll take a right-wing talking point latte with a double shot of BS. Make it a venti. Let me throw it over to my panel very quickly. Jack Ma, well, go on, I'll throw it over. What do you guys think?
Well, I don't know how we can afford this, Jimmy. You know what I mean? It's just, it doesn't make sense to me. And it's like, these employees wanting to make more than minimum wage when one cup of coffee could give each employee at any Starbucks actual livable wage. It's just preposterous. We don't know. How can we do this when we have a 1,000% markup on a cup of coffee? I don't know how we can pay reasonable wages, and I don't know how we can pay for these things. Like the left has gone so far. I love that. The left wing of the Democratic Party is further right than the right wing of the right wing party in Australia.
Yes.
Yes, the rightest right wing.
Yes, what Bernie Sanders, if he was a politician in Norway, he would be considered a centrist.
Yeah. A centrist.
A centrist, because the things that he's advocating are taken for granted. I just came back from Norway. Everybody has health care, everybody has vacations, everybody has a living wage, and everybody has free college. Not only everybody who lives in Norway, but if my kids wanted to go to Norway, they would also have free college.
Well, you know what Norway...
But how are we going to afford that? Go ahead.
Well, the one thing, before you start waxing poetic on how great Norway is, they're not dropping 120 bombs a day the way the U.S. is.
No, they're not. You are correct.
We're leading the race in democracy, Graham. I hope you remember that.
You're a true patriot.
So here is the Jeff Bezos of Asia, Jack Ma. So he runs Alibaba, which is the Amazon of Asia. And they asked him, hey, what the hell's, why is America so effed up? They're the richest country in the world, and half their country's poor. And he says this. Here's what he
Past
said.
30 years, the American had 13 wars, spending $14.2 trillion. The money going there. What if they spend a part of that money on building up the infrastructure, helping the white collars and the blue collars? No matter how strategy good it is, you're supposed to spend money on your own people.
Can I vote for him instead of Howard Schultz? Can I? I'll vote for that guy over Howard Schultz if I have to.
You're supposed to spend that $14.2 trillion on wars. You're supposed to spend that money on your own people. We're not spending that money on our own people. Go ahead.
Take $14.2 trillion. What if we just took 7 of it?
7 trillion?
What would America look like? It would be a palace. We would have high-speed rail coast to coast. The minimum wage would be $25 an hour. We would have low crime. We would have low handgun deaths. We would have clean air and drinkable water. We would have a thriving democracy.
Everybody goes to college who wants to go.
Yeah.
Everybody has health care. We wouldn't have homelessness.
We wouldn't.
You can get rid of homelessness for $20 billion a year.
$20 billion a year. That's nothing. That is change in a couch cushion compared to $14.2 trillion.
You know what? It sounds like you're going to make people who make weapons and bombs and the military, they're going to lose money this way. Ooh. Okay, Graham, you have to keep in mind that our economy is based on the production of killing machines.
You're right.
I just had a conversation today with someone who's high up in the Democratic Party, and they were telling me that Disney has just conceded that they're going to pay $15 wage to their employees. I didn't hear about this yet. I have to look into it. And he then told me, he said, you know how much money Disney made in profit last year? He said they made $24 billion in profit.
How are they going to afford it?
Do you know how much they're going to make now after they pay everybody? They're going to make $20 billion in profit. They're still going to make $20 billion in profit. But everybody who generates that profit now gets to have closer to a living wage.
Wouldn't you go to bed every night with a smile on your face knowing we've helped millions of people's lives get better? Like, you could sit there and go, you know what, we're going to make, actually, let's cut it down to $16 billion in profit, and everybody gets $20 an hour at Disney, and we will have the best employees and the best parks, and we'll get letter after letter after letter saying, God, you made our lives better. My kid got this. We didn't have to GoFundMe for a knee surgery. I don't know how these people look themselves in the mirror. Oh, that's right. You have to have a soul to see your reflection.
That's right.
My fault.
You know what? He actually said a few more things. Let me hear what he had to say.
So many voices within the Democratic Party are going so far to the left, and I ask myself, how are we going to pay for all these things in terms of things like single payer or people espousing?
How are we going to pay for a less expensive healthcare system? That's what he's literally saying. By the way, this guy gives healthcare to part-time employees, but somehow the richest country in the world can't pull that off. Somehow he can give healthcare to part-time employees, but the richest country in the face of the earth has ever seen. It's just like, you guys are crazy. This guy is not who he's presenting himself to be. He's not a thoughtful intellectual. This guy is a fucking neocon con man. He is a neoliberal bullshit artist. That's who this guy is. Neoliberal bullshit artist. Hey, man, if a billionaire telling you that you can't have single payer doesn't inspire you to vote, what will? What will?
Fact that the government is going to give everyone a job. I don't think that's realistic. And
Again, everybody can't have a job. We have to spend $700 billion on the military. How can everybody have a job? Everybody can have a job if they join the military, though, right? Oh yeah.
Everybody can have a job if they sell marijuana. Then they can have a job making stuff for the private prison industry. So there's a job there for you.
I mean, how? Of course, everyone can have a job. We're the richest country in the fucking world. Jeff Bezos has enough money in his own bank account to employ everybody in the goddamn country. One guy. One guy's worth $120 billion.
But isn't it easier to imprison people than it is to give them a job?
Right. Nobody ever says, how are we going to pay for those prisons? How are we going to pay for those wars? So this guy is a bullshit artist.
He's going to give us more of the same. He's right there with Nancy Pelosi. Ugh. He has no vision. He's just saying what we can't accomplish.
We can't have Steph, we can't.
That's real leadership, by the way.
That's real leadership. Hey, we can't have all the great social programs that every other goddamn country in the Western world has. But I can grind a coffee bean into a milkshake.
It's fascinating to me. It costs less money to give someone free college tuition than to house them in a private prison.
Yeah.
How are we going to pay for it? I don't know. Stop locking them up for bullshit crimes.
$70,000 a year. $70,000 a year they pay to incarcerate someone in California. Imagine if you gave that guy $40,000 a year and said, please don't do any more crime.
Wow.
We'd save $30,000 a year per person that we could maybe use to send someone to college.
Oh, that's crazy. So you give that guy a job and a college degree versus having him go into a prison and a life of crime.
But how are we going to afford that?
I don't know.
In the richest country, the face of the earth. How are we going to afford that?
I just like how he's also just talking to a straw man to begin with. He's saying people in the Democratic leadership are veering too far to left.
Nobody
and then
is.
He doesn't name names. It's like, please tell me who you're referring to, Howard, because I'm not aware of any of this.
Oh, Perez, that lefty. Chuck Schumer, oh boy, he's way out there on that left ramp.
He doesn't name names because there's no one to name.
Yeah.
Right.
The only person saying that is Bernie Sanders, and don't forget, he's not a Democrat. People want to remind me of that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Howard Schultz is the Starbucks original roast of political views. People only go to it because they're unaware that there's an alternative. I really messed that joke up, but I tried. So he has a little bit more to say. Here we go.
Versus growth. And I'm not sure that the stock market is necessarily the barometer you want to look at either. But it's possible this year we grow above 3%. And there's maybe a lot of reasons why that's going to happen. Maybe it was set up by the Obama administration. But for 8 years, we didn't. Never had a year. We barely got to 2%. So there's this never-ending argument about whether growth and letting the private sector have more capital, keeping it in the private sector and letting that grow the pie, or whether redistribution is the way to go. I mean, if we end up growing at greater than 3% this year, would you repeal the Tax Reform Act? Would you raise taxes on corporations back to where they were if you were president?
So what he's saying, what this guy is arguing for is, hey, let's let the private sector take care of it. And if the economy just grows enough, then people will have more money, right? Instead of us just coming in as a government and redistributing wealth. Doing that since 1980. What this guy is prescribing, we've been doing that since 1980. Guess what? Doesn't work. The results are in. Doesn't matter how much the economy grows. Guess who doesn't get a pay raise? The people who generate those profits. People's pay have been decoupled from productivity since around 1980, coincidentally. And so it no longer matters if the economy grows. That's why all the gains in the economy go to the upper 1%, even under a guy like Barack Obama, because he's not doing progressive policies. He's doing moderate Republican policies, which are neoliberal, which hurt who? Everybody except the wealthy. And he's saying, well, if we start growing at 4%, 3%, do you want to tax corporations again? Yes. You mean to pay for everything? Yes. Yes. So here's what he says.
Well, I don't want to talk in the hypothetical about what I would do if I was president, but let me try and say this in my own way. I think the greatest threat domestically to the country is this $21 trillion debt hanging over the
Again, he sounds like Bob Dole. Who is this guy? This guy who knows he can charge people $5 for a cup of coffee and give his part-time employees health care, but when he wants to run for president, we can't have nothing. You can't do anything. By the way, we print our own frickin' money. This is why we could give the banks $15 trillion without blinking. And no discussion in the country, by the way. Because if you had a discussion in the country about bailing out Wall Street, they would have said, break those goddamn banks up and put them in jail like they did in Iceland, but we're not doing that here. Because there's never a discussion. And Princeton study proved we don't live in a democracy anymore. We live in an oligarchy. And that's what this is. This guy's an oligarch saying that we can't have nice things. He has all those things he says you can't have. He has access to unlimited health care. He has access to affordable housing. His kids are going to college, any college they want. He has everything that he says you can't have.
out of America and future generations. And the fact that interest rates are going up, we're going to be paying close to over $400 billion.
Again, this is just scaremongering the deficit. It's bullshit. It's always been bullshit. Doesn't matter. Bill Clinton handed off a balanced budget to George W. Bush. Do we get health care out of it? Do we get free college? Did people get a living wage? Do we get an infrastructure plan? Do we get a jobs bill? We didn't get anything. That's just bullshit. And Howard Schultz is full of shit. And he's bad for the country. And he's a bullshitter. If he believes that, he's dumber than Trump. And I know he doesn't believe this. But he does have that thing that people who are millionaires have. They lose empathy for normal people's problems, which is what he's done. He is not on the left. And that's what's wrong with this country. But he sounds, he sounds just like Nancy Pelosi. He sounds just like Chuck Schumer. He sounds just like the Democrats and the Democratic Party, which is why we got Trump. Again, it wasn't Jill Stein. It wasn't women, which is what Michelle Obama tells you. Women, there's something wrong with women's brains. That's what Michelle Obama tells you. That's why we have Trump. It's got nothing to do with this. It's got nothing to do with our government being totally captured by corporations. It's got nothing to do with our own government working against us on a daily basis. It's got nothing to do with the unbelievably unequal distribution of wealth in this country. It's got nothing to do with any of that. It's got nothing to do with her husband kicking 5 million families out of their houses while making the banks whole and doing nothing to help those people. It's got nothing to do with that. So that's all this is. Any last words from my panel?
I just want to remind you, Jimmy, of Starbucks' mission statement.
What is their mission statement?
To inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time.
That's not a mission statement. That's a marketing slogan. That's what that is. And we just broke another record for CEO salaries. We went from 15.5 million a year to now it's over $16 million a year, CEO salaries.
Uh-huh.
So, but I don't know how we're going to pay
Where
for
are we going to
anything.
get this money?
Where are we going to get this money?
As if we don't have money in this country. Just like Jack Ma said, we don't invest it in our own country. We don't invest in our own people.
They're so arrogant. It's just like, well, if you take away my CEO bonus, I mean, polo horses don't pay for themselves, Jimmy. How am I supposed to take a helicopter to the Hamptons? I mean, what am I, an animal? Take a train?
It's just a matter of time before people get pitchforks and torches. That's what this means. Our next live Jimmy Dore show is July 1st in Portland, Oregon, and July 15th in Chicago, Illinois. We're doing a live show July 15th in Chicago, Illinois. Go to a link right there for all the tickets to all the live Jimmy Dore shows. Plus, if you can help become a premium member, we give you hours of bonus material every week. Become a patron or a premium member. And if you're on Steam It, we're steaming it right now. Plus, every Saturday, we do a live Super Solid Chat Saturday where it's a live stream and you can ask us questions and we'll answer them back. Every Saturday, 2 p.m. Pacific time. Thanks for your support.